Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CvCISO podcast, episode number 64. I'm your host, Andy. We've got the great Evan Francine along with us, Executive Director of Security Studio Academy, Dave Tuckman. We've got Jordan Darling,
Hi,
aka Jade Frizzle, and we've got our special guest, Joe Erle, cybersecurity guru, who's going to tell us everything he knows about cybersecurity insurance.
Yeah, we have to bring our A game today. Do we have an A game, guys?
No, we do not.
No. Shucks. All right, let's try to bring our...
This is for Joe, guys. This is for Joe.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Thanks for
They
being
say that C's get degrees. Let's bring our C game, at least.
Yeah,
That's
my
true.
A game.
Mhm.
I can prove it.
Live on the
It's a lot of work.
Should I change my name? That's not professional.
No,
Leave the Cheeto eater part.
Unprofessional about Cheetos.
Yeah,
either.
you need to be specific with flaming hot Cheetos.
True.
All right, so Joe's joining us. Joe, tell us, what do you do? So that, our listeners can understand, why we think you're so valuable, I think, for them to hear from. We'll have questions and all that stuff, but tell us what you do.
So I'm a cyber insurance broker, which means that I help CISOs, CTOs, CFOs, and business owners buy cyber insurance. I help answer the question, how much cyber insurance do I need? How much risk am I transferring? And what insurance am I actually getting? So I help explain the differences between policies because there's no standard cyber insurance policy, and then help them make a decision or make a choice on which company and which policy to buy.
All right.
Awesome. Did you
that's the
start your
simple
career?
answer.
Did you start your career in insurance or in information security?
I started in insurance. Yeah. I was a generalist for about 12 years before I started doing cyber about 5-6 years ago. And I just saw that, with COVID and everything, that cyber was just becoming a big deal. And that's where I could make the most impact. So
Yeah,
It seems like the cyber insurance industry has really undergone a lot of changes, probably over the last 5 years, but even more so. Because it seemed like when they were first underwriting it, the goal was to just get paper on the streets, just get premiums coming in the door. That's what it seemed like. And because there really wasn't a lot of vetting up front, there wasn't a lot of risk understanding up front. They're really short insurance applications. And it seems like the insurance industry kind of took it in the pants a little bit. And so now they're like, okay, we need to raise rates. We need to vet people better. And in some cases, I think even mandate specific controls and technologies in their environment. Do you see the same thing as what, I see as kind of an outsider to this? Is that what you've seen happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
The insurance industry traditionally is very cyclical. It happens with liability, property rates, workers' comp. Like you could see, like right now, property rates are really high in California due to fires. Same thing with cyber insurance, right? Like, so in 2020, 2021, when everybody started working at home, we had all these hacks and claims went way up and premiums were like very undervalued. So premiums doubled and tripled. And some people had to, extend their budgets or decide, do I get just 1 million instead of 5 million this year? And then in 2023, when things kind of at the end of COVID, things started calming down, and insurance companies, while they still were requiring like MFA and other controls like MDR, they've kind of let off the strictness a little bit, and they've brought the prices way down too. So part of that is not just because they're having better losses, because they are having a lot of losses. Part of it's because there's a lot of venture capital money in the cyber insurance world, this InsurSec sector. We have about like 150 cyber insurance companies competing right now. So the prices are really low right now, even though they're still getting losses. On the cyber security side, they are getting more sophisticated with their underwriting, their use of technology and AI in order to make sure that people have what they say they have. They are getting stricter with claims too. There's about 27% of cyber insurance claims are denied. You guys probably saw that Hamilton case.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Hamilton was a school district in Ontario. Am I saying that right? They had a $18.5 million ransom, and the guy got in because they didn't have MFA enabled, right? Was that it? MFA?
Yeah. That MFA was the trigger to deny the claim.
And the reason why that triggered it was because they said they had it, right? On their insurance application. that goes back to like one of the big reasons why insurance claims are denied is because you say you have something when you don't. Um, it's kind of like with your home insurance policy. If you say you have like an alarm system, or a property policy where you have an alarm system and you actually don't, or you turned it on, and then you have a burglary and the alarm never went off because you
Mhm.
never had it, the insurance company is going to claim that deny that burglary as well. So the same thing goes with cyber insurance. It's
Are the
a material misrepresentation on a contract.
are the applications? I know at the beginning it seemed like it was all over the board. Like depending on where you were trying to get insurance from, sometimes they were really long applications, very strict, very detailed. Sometimes they didn't even make sense to me when I was trying to help people fill them out. But then some were like lighter. Are they starting to kind of? Are the insurance? What would you call them? Are the insurance companies kind of unifying on that? Or are the applications becoming more like uniform across all companies and providers?
Yes, the insurance applications are becoming more uniform. Most insurance companies will take other insurance companies' applications.
Really?
Well, for instance, I usually use like the Tokyo Marine uh, insurance application because it's like has all the questions that most companies need, and the questions are based around the controls, right? So they're going to have questions on MFA, EDR, cyber insurance training and awareness. They're going to have funds transfer fraud type questions like what are your protocols when transferring money? And they're going to use that information to A, see if you qualify for the insurance, B, give you discounts, and then C, decide what coverages they're going to give or not give you. So if you don't have like any controls for your transferring of wire transfers, you may not get social engineering coverage or may get like a sublimit much lower than the next person.
And you mentioned that there's 150-ish, insurance companies in cyber insurance or underwriting there. And so that's keeping prices low. I don't know much about the insurance industry. How does that compare with like property casualty? Are there more or less of those?
Well, there's probably more in general, and a lot of the property and casualty. I mean, cyber insurance is technically a department of property and casualty.
Okay.
So a lot of the traditional insurance companies like Liberty Mutual, Philadelphia, Hartford, all have Chubb, of course, all have cyber insurance divisions. So there's all those guys, right? The traditional insurance companies. And then there's all these new startups that are new insurance companies. And then there's also managed general agents, MGAs, which they're like almost like like an insurance marketing company that has created their own product, but they use the backing of another insurance company. So like Converge, for example, they write on, I think, Lloyd's of London paper, but they have their own program
Okay.
and they have their own underwriters and their own claims people, but they're not actually an insurance company. They're like almost like a middleman, but they pose as an insurance company. Cowbell did that for a while too. I mean, that's how Cowbell started.
Is cowbell still around?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's still around.
Okay.
You can't have too much cowbell. Man. In fact, I'd
More
like some more
cowbell.
cowbell.
More cowbell.
Sorry, I had to.
No, it's funny. They do that too. The guys over at Cowbell have a good sense of humor, and now they write on their own paper. They've become big enough to like create their own backing and an own insurance company. So that's the boring background of insurance companies. But yeah, going back to this Hamilton case, it was like an $18 million loss. They ended up not paying the hacker the $18 million required to get their system back, and ended up costing them $18 million in improvements and getting their system back online. So it was kind of sucks that the insurance company didn't pay for it, but I kind of get why they didn't. It's because they didn't have that major control. And I think when you're filling out an insurance application, you have to be careful with certain controls, right? Like the yes or no answers, like MFA, EDR, things like that, where it's like, do you have it or do you not? You need to, if you say yes, you need to be able to back that up, and you need to keep it on. I bet you're going to get a claim covered if you turn it off for like one person or like one time and something happens. Maybe you'll probably still get the claim covered, but if you say you have it and you don't, it's just
What if
it's
it
a
was
material misrepresentation.
any
Now,
on if it,
I've told customers a lot, over the years, because they'll think, well, we've got insurance, so we don't need to do certain things and whatever, or like incident response. Well, we don't need to build an incident response capability because we have cyber insurance. And I always tell them that the insurance company doesn't work for you. They're in business. They're in business to make money, and you can't blame them for that. They cover things, but they're only going to cover what they have to cover. If they don't have to pay a claim, they don't want to pay a claim. That's a loss for them. So it's not surprising to hear that 27% of claims are denied. But I think, from somebody who's buying insurance, if I were going to buy insurance, I would make it really, really clear that everything that we said that we have, that you are entering into a contract, that you're going to hold them to the contract. They're going to hold you to the contract. So I better freaking read the contract. I better know what's covered, what's not covered, so that I can compensate around the cyber insurance. But I think a lot of people don't do that. I think maybe in some cases, there's bad guidance. Like, I would be pissed off what role does the broker play in ensuring that the customer completed their questionnaire correctly? You know what I mean? Because what a time to find out that you don't have coverage is when shit hits the fan and you need it the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
well, one of the things, and save your thought there, Joe, because I want to come back to it. But one of the things that I recommend that pretty much Joe and I we're doing this a lot when I had the opportunity to serve as a consultant. And I recommend every vCISO have someone like a Joe in their stable, because what we would do is ensure that the client understood what was in the policy. I don't know that stuff well enough. I just know I needed someone like Joe, who was a solid professional that could look at their policy. And so we would take that opportunity to try and help the client make sure they understood what was in it. So I just wanted to throw out that, but go ahead and answer Evan's question. Then I got another question for you.
Yeah, Evan was asking about what role does the broker have in making sure that people are filling out what they have and what they say they have. And I would say it depends on the sophistication of the business that they're working with. Sometimes I'm working with companies that I'm working with like a CFO or the business owner, and they don't really know a lot of the cybersecurity terminology, and I'm acting as like a translator to them. Maybe they have an MSP that's helping them fill it out. Maybe they don't. I think in that situation, onus is more on me to like make sure that what they say they do. And then on more sophisticated companies, they should be able to, fill it out. And, I try to, when I send out applications, I send out like a top 10 tips for filling out your cyber insurance application. And I send out a glossary of terms too, just so like things are a little bit better defined. But as Dave was saying, and there's no standard cyber insurance policy. So like on the front end, you might see I have 5 million in ransomware. I have 5 million in cyber breach cost and defense, and 250,000 or 500,000 in social engineering. When you look in the actual fine print, my definition of social engineering might be different than this other company's definition. So yes, you're going to be covered for social engineering if somebody sends you a invoice and you pay it and it ends up going to a hacker, right? But what if somebody sends an invoice on your behalf to your customer and your customer pays it, and then they don't want to pay you again because they already paid for this, construction supplies, right? A form of reverse social engineering, and some policies exclude that. And you think you're getting the same thing because just social engineering. So there's a lot of stuff like that we're seeing.
Well, the frustrating part too is this industry is so damn confusing. I mean, there's lots of people in this industry who call themselves experts that give, advice. It's just like, what the hell? We come up with new buzzwords every single day. So I wonder how many people, because when you have this material misrepresentation of a contract, there's times when it's intentional and there's times when it's completely accidental. Like, I thought this meant this, didn't mean that. You know what I mean? And so, if you take this case up in Canada, giving them the benefit of the doubt, you could look at it both ways. I don't know all the details, but, whoever completed that insurance application, especially if it's like a CFO, If it's a CFO, I don't think they know what MFA stands for in a lot of cases, so they're like, yeah, I think we have that,
Mhm.
So I think being really careful when you're completing those insurance applications to make sure that it's all completed accurately. But in a lot of cases too, in small to mid-sized businesses, especially, what's ripe for the vCISO market, where do they go to get the answers to these
Mhm.
questions? You need to either go to the broker, go to your vCISO, somebody to make sure you get all the answers correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I can define the terms, but I can't get into your system and know what
Right.
you have or don't
Right.
have.
Do you think there's like
Well, and
you
I
seem
think you're probably a really good insurance, broker, but I know enough about insurance brokers that they're not all like you. I mean, there's a lot of them that just want to get the thing written because there's a commission associated with it. The motive is to get the insurance policy. The motive is not to make sure that this company gets, I mean, that motive is there, but I don't think it's kind of secondary in a way. Like, yeah, well, if they missed a couple of things, whatever. I mean, at least we got the policy written. I got the commission and we're moving on. I mean, I hate to call that seems so damn cynical, but there's a lot of money in this industry and that shit happens a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that's there's people like that in every industry for sure.
Right.
Yeah, do you think sorry, yeah, I mean, Joe, you seem like someone who could, navigate a lot of the uh cybersecurity things with your clients, but I imagine there's a ton of agents out there that can't. But so do you think there's an opportunity for vCISOs to partner up with insurance agents to, when you are meeting with a client or something or a prospect, that they could kind of come in and shoulder up to you and provide that? And maybe not you, but other agents.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any vCISO, a lot of times they are bringing people in from different categories, like um, in order to help create a risk management program. Insurance is a big part of risk management. I mean, you have your risk avoidance, risk mitigation, then you have your risk transfer. So it's like we all need to be, you can't just have cybersecurity and you can't just have cyber insurance. You have to have both because, look at like United Healthcare, they spend like $1 billion on cybersecurity and they still get hacked, right? So it's like, there's no like, or JP Morgan, I don't know, I don't even know how much they spend, but they still get hacked, right? So you have to have that extra bit of cyber insurance. And we help people answer that question by putting their industry and their sales to see what other people their size are doing. And we do some risk simulations in order to see like how much insurance they should get in order to see how much risk that they are transferring.
Yeah. Hey, Jordan, just to that point, like Joe said, so everything rolls back to risk management. And this is one of those ways that you do it. So it was always important to me to make sure it was mentioned and discussed with the client. And sometimes you'll find the ones that say, no, we got our broker, we're not changing. And it was always, look, there's no agenda on this other than to make sure you are fully aware and educated on what you have purchased or what you're looking to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when I work with vCISOs like Dave, I always tell them, like, I'm not, if we sell a new policy, that's great. Or if they want to work with me, that's great. But like what I'm trying to do is add value to what you're doing so that, your customer feels like, they're not only getting the cybersecurity side, they're also getting cyber insurance side. So, if they want to go back to their own broker and say, hey, like, why am I only getting this much social engineering why am I only getting 250,000 in social engineering when I'm making like $1 million transfers? And I'm kind of open there, right? Because, part of what we do is learning more about like what you're doing as a business, how much money you're transferring. If you're transferring, $1 million at a time and you only have 250,000 in coverage, one transfer, even if it's covered, it's going to be $750,000 loss. Some other reasons why insurance claims get denied is there's some reporting provisions in insurance. So like if you think you have if you think you have a breach, it's a good idea to like put your insurance company on notice. Definitely let them know within like 30 days maximum. if you've had anything. And then before another big deadline is before your policy expires. Because if you're like switching from one insurance policy to a different company, you want to make sure that that claim is reported to the insurance company that you had before. Another one is, of course, exclusions. There's all sorts of exclusions on insurance policies. I would tell CISOs and vCISOs is like, yes, it's great to read all the coverages, but you should just go right to the exclusions because that's where you're going to be able to learn most about what your insurance policies is covering by learning what it's not covered.
Yeah, you taught me that. Let's start there. And then we can read the rest of it after. But let's go there first.
Absolutely. And then, like you may have exclusions mean different things with different companies, like the war exclusion. I mean, you could do an entire podcast on the war exclusion because it's like, is it state-sponsored terrorist, or is it actually the nation state that's doing it? Is it like the rebels from South Korea and they're not part of the actual state? So it's like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. You guys see a lot of nation state hacks right now? I know like salt typhoons becoming like a big thing.
Yeah, it's the biggest headline. And that was probably the most egregious cyber attack that we've probably seen.
Yeah, we covered that last week on our podcast, actually. I don't know if it's out yet.
I think a lot of people don't know what they're being targeted by. To be honest, I think in the small to mid-sized business space, and even some of the larger companies, I don't think they have a really good idea what threats are facing them. I don't think they're really concerned mostly about, they're not all that concerned about nation state, because nation state is more, I think, interested in data exfiltration than it is in a disruption of the business. And so I think that, even AT&T, didn't notice that Salt Typhoon was in their environment for 3-4 years, so it's like, I think what they're more concerned about is just protection of their business, keeping it running. There's really not a huge amount of penalty either in data exfiltration, nowadays, unless there's a class action lawsuit that comes about it or something. So I think most people are concerned about shutting my business down, the ransomware piece. And so when you look at they're in the risk management, right? You have the acceptable risks. This isn't about risk elimination. It's about risk management. So in order for me to know that, I have to know what risks exist. I have to know my vulnerabilities. I have to know the threats that apply to those vulnerabilities, and that's going to give me the risk. And so if you take people through this, the basics, the fundamentals as a vCISO, the company will know themselves so much better than they did before they started the process. And they'll know which risks are not acceptable to them, but I also can't afford to mitigate it. So that leaves transfer then. So I'm going to get insurance. And I wish we had more vCISOs and more companies that would go about it pragmatically like this, because then I've got a set of like 20, 30 risks. And I'm specifically going to go get cyber insurance to cover against those, and the insurance company would appreciate it because it shows them that you actually know what you're talking about, that there's probably a lot of accuracy in your insurance application and all that stuff. You're probably going to get a break on your premiums because you've got a risk assessment. It's documented. You know what I mean? It's specific about what you want coverage for. But that way you're taking control of the conversation, as opposed to, I think what most companies do is go talk to an insurance broker and have the insurance broker tell you what coverage, is likely that you're going to need based on the other customers that they work with and all this other stuff. So to put yourself in a good power position with your business, it only makes sense for you to do a risk assessment, determine which risks are unacceptable, which of those can I not mitigate, I can't afford to, or it's just too much work, and then go get insurance based on those things.
That's a great point.
And then you can specifically look in the policy about the coverage. And then when you get to the exclusions, if you decide to start there, which of these exclusions doesn't, negates the coverage that I'm looking for on this risk transfer?
Yeah, because why do you need coverage for something that you have pretty much locked down and there's no, I need zero coverage for shit that ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What I need is coverage for shit that that is likely to happen or more likely to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you don't tell it to the insurance company like that. I don't know. This is likely to happen.
And the fact of the matter is, for companies that I would consult, I wouldn't go get insurance unless I've done a risk assessment myself. It's like going to the market completely blind. It's like going to buy a car and you don't know what kind of car you want, or if you even need a damn car. You know what I mean? It's just like, do some research first, get to know who you are first, and then go to the market.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
One of the other things I learned collaborating with Joe is that, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but when you do have some say in trying to determine who your incident response provider will be within the policy. And a lot of people don't know that, so they just get the policy, and if something happens, the insurance company is going to go with who they're used to going with. And the best way to, when you have the most power in negotiation, is at time of renewal. You're not going to get that changed after the policy. So being able to, again, just, Jordan, we could almost do another podcast of who a vCISO should have in their stable of trusted advisors to go to. And Joe's like right up there at the top of the list, because you can talk about things like that and help add awareness that otherwise wouldn't have existed above and beyond what is the fiscal or the other aspects of insurance people are used to talking about. Joe, question for you. And when how much time do you like to have in helping somebody prepare for a policy or renewal? So it's not, I mean, we've done some where they're just time was not an option to do based on their renewal, but trying to approach it proactively.
Yeah, I usually like to start about 60 days out.
Okay.
We usually have that's when like I'd like to, well, first, like 120 days out, I usually have like a talk with them about like the state of the market, what's happening in cyber insurance in their industry. And then 60 days out, we're getting the application, and we have kind of a strategy session on like which companies we're going for, and what coverages we want or don't want. And then about 3 or 4 weeks before renewal, we try to like lock it in so that they don't have to like worry about their cyber insurance expiring without having it. So it's kind of the timeline, but we can turn something around in a couple days. Looking for cyber insurance and wants something quick, they get me the application, and they're forthcoming with questions that come up from underwriting. We can get things going really fast.
Awesome. I got another question.
Go ahead.
This came up recently, actually, in an incident response planning session that Dave and I were having with the client. And I think I got this idea from Oscar from FR Secure. He had talked about this, I think, at some event. But the idea of insurance companies having a breach coach, like a cyber breach coach. And I wanted to ask you, because like the conversation I had with our client was like they didn't think that they had one, and how much of this is a thing? How many insurance providers have a breach coach, and how is the best way to kind of engage with them?
Good question. Everybody that goes through insurance is usually going to use a breach coach. So that's usually, the breach coach is from the incident response team, but it's usually actually from an attorney or law firm that specializes in, cyber insurance breaches or cybersecurity breaches, like Mullen Coughlin or some of these other big firms. And the reason they do that is that if you go through this breach coach, then you create a relationship with them and everything's under privilege. So you hire this breach coach. The breach coach actually hires the incident response. The breach coach hires the forensic people, and it all goes through them, so that there's not it reduces the chance of like some class action lawsuit later on because everything's privileged. Is that always a good thing? Are we not learning lessons about cybersecurity and what's happening to people because these things are like secret or whatever now? That's a discussion that's kind of fun to have, whether we should be sharing this information or we should be quashing it in order to reduce the chance of class action lawsuits.
So you said
class action lawsuits, and also just sharing, TTPs with others. TTPs are, essentially the methodology that the attackers are using to get into environments, because the attackers aren't just going after this one organization, this one company, right? They're going after a large number of companies because it's a better return on their investment. So when you don't share, you just got hacked and this is how they got in, I might be in the same boat, but if I would never know because there was no sharing. You know what I mean? So I get where you're coming from on that. But there's also, you got to protect yourself too, right? That's a conundrum. That's a big word, conundrum.
Yes.
That's basically a Gen X word there, Jay Driz.
It's a conundrum wrapped in an enigma.
Geez, I felt like I had an enigma this morning after I had that toast tacos last night.
So just kind of touching on that cyber coach again, or breach coach again. So is the breach coach someone that the insurance company has a relationship with where the client can ask the insurance company to speak with the breach coach, or is it something that the client engages directly with?
So there's a couple ways that this happens, and companies that are a little bit more proactive with their tabletop exercises, their DERP, their planning, they're going to be ahead of this when the claim actually comes, and they're going to know like who they need to call. Of course, the insurance company, but if they already know which panel lawyer they're going to go to. So insurance companies have a panel, which is like they're people that they have already pre-negotiated prices with. Then, the person can actually just like call the attorney directly and get the claim started. Like what Dave was talking about too, is like you can decide like who your attorney is going to be before you have a claim or before you even start the insurance policy. As long as the attorney can be approved by their panel, or the incident response company can be approved by their panel, then there's no reason why the insurance company wouldn't be able to pay them a negotiated rate. So usually it's like it's people on the panel, and then there's approved vendors, and usually become an approved vendor, you have to at least have like a department you have to have an incident response department. You can't just be like any IT company, but usually they're good with negotiating that. And but there are some things that kind of stick a wrench in that when it comes to cyber insurance, because cyber insurance companies are getting a little bit greedy, and they want to do their own. And they want to buy an incident response company and have their incident response company do it. And if you use their incident response company, they're not going to, charge you a deductible, or they're going to give you a discount on your deductible or whatever. And like it causes a big conflict because, like say, we get a policy with Dave's company approved, and then this insurance company says, yeah, you can use Dave's company for, as much as you want. But like if you use our company, we're not going to charge you your $25,000 deductible. So like who are they going to use, right?
Yeah.
Are you finding that to be more and more of an emerging activity?
Yeah. I'm seeing insurance companies and cybersecurity companies kind of coming together a bit more.
And sadly, we've seen that because we do a lot of incident response work. And the fact of the matter is the cyber insurance company does not work for you. And because we've run into a lot of, if I have the cyber insurance, right, I'm in business to make money. So I either don't want to pay the claim, or I want the expenses to be as low as possible. And so in an incident response, we'll get them back up and running again, maybe close some doors, whatever. But oftentimes every time, essentially, they cut corners in their incident response in getting the company back up and running again. Whereas if you had a true incident response team, I think that was motivated in serving you as opposed to serving the insurance company, it would have gone much different. I think you'd be in a better place. So there is certainly that conflict of interest, and we've seen it more and more. And people need to be aware of that. The best incident response capability to have is at least some semblance of your own, right? The first 3-4 steps of an incident response, anybody can do. It doesn't take any technical expertise to do it. And it gets you off on this right foot. Yeah. It's interesting to see that happen, because it's interesting too that the regulations would allow that to happen.
Yeah. So I think there's a misinformation in what insurance is and cyber insurance, because I think a lot of people think like, yeah, once I get back and running, I'm going to be better than I was before. But the insurance company's like, nope, we're going to get you like exactly where you were before. We're not going to improve your cybersecurity stance at all. We're just going to get you back. We're going to spend at least money as possible to get you back to where your systems were before. If you want to upgrade, that's on you. There are endorsements that you can add to policies to pay for what we call betterment. Sometimes it's called something else where they'll give you like a sublimit. Sometimes it's a percentage of the limit. Sometimes it's like 250,000 or something where it'll pay to get your systems upgraded so that the same claim won't happen again.
Interesting.
That's something you have to pay extra for.
In the physical world, it'd be like the insurance company buying their own fire department and police department to come and, respond to your house being broken into or burned down. You know what I mean? It's like, wait a second. I think I want the experts to do that shit. You know what I mean?
Well, the insurance company Fireman's Fund was started off as that.
What, did it really? So they had their own fire company?
Yeah.
Do they
in a way, they do. There are companies that will, like high net worth companies like Chubb or something, they'll have people that'll like spray foam on your house when there's like a big fire coming so that your house can get saved. So like you see like when they have these big fires, like if you have certain policies, they'll spray foam on your house or this stuff that makes it less flammable in order to stop your house or reduce the chance of your house getting caught on fire.
Are you seeing an increase in like self-insurance where you've got, a group of companies coming together, maybe because we've seen it in the public space, I think more, where a group of cities might come together and pool together their money and resources and they'll insure themselves. So it's like a self-insurance. Do you see those arrangements and do they work?
I'm aware of a captive that Marsh is doing where companies are like, and having their own type of insurance company. That's what kind of a captive is. But it's more expensive usually from what I saw. I don't know their product that well, but the other products in the market are very comparable and much less expensive.
Okay.
Because you
have like the League of Minnesota Cities, which I think, part of being a member of that is they insure you. And it's like a self-insurance. All the cities put in money and then I guess they take the money out, to help a city get back on their feet or something. But I don't know a lot about those. Now, I was more curious than anything else. I'm not sure how much it applies to, a VC.
You would think the same thing would apply, though. You get people together, they're going to want to make sure whoever's in that group is doing the right things, and they're going to be upset and not want to pay out if you said you had MFA and you didn't.
The one thing I like about that kind of a self-insurance model is your peers, right? We're doing this to protect the group protect the herd as opposed to make a profit off the herd. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of like kind when you have like cities coming together in that particular example. There's similar threats that apply to cities.
We put together programs for like restaurant associations, things like that, where it's like it's a pool, but it's backed by the insurance company. Other things you can do is, have a large deductible where you're self-insuring like the first, 100, 150,000. And a lot of people are self-insuring. They just don't have cyber insurance. They just have to find the money when they have a breach. And you guys know. And what do they pay per hour for incident response? 400, 800 an hour?
It's usually pre-negotiated. So a lot of our incident response work is we prefer that we have an arrangement already. So we have the incident response plan. Well, yeah, and we know a little bit about you, so you're not just running into the fire blind. So in those cases, it's a negotiated lower rate. Yeah, it can be $450 to $600 an hour.
I mean, it's not cheap. You're running like 24 hours a day for like 2-3 days. Yeah, that stuff adds up quick.
Yeah, and it's not because we have a rule that if you sell the customer something they don't need, I'll run you over with my truck. And that goes with charging people too much as well. But the reason why it is that expensive is people are expensive, that kind of skill set. But we also don't want to waste your time. So on an incident response, if this doesn't require us to get deep with you and it's, we have other ways to handle it as opposed to, formally engaging, we'll go that route if it's in their best interest so that we don't have to charge you this money. But yeah, it's expensive. It's a shitty thing to go through. I've sat across from presidents of companies knowing that this business isn't going to survive this with or without insurance. I mean, you're screwed. You had no backups. You can't get this data back. I mean, the cyber insurance company can give you $20 million. That's fine. Your company was so data driven, the $20 million isn't going to get your data back. There's really no amount of money that'll get that data back. We've also had times when insurance companies There was one story where where the company didn't want to pay the ransom, but the insurance company and the breach coach, that's basically what was covered. The better approach would have been to build a secondary environment and then migrate things over into that new environment. That would be, but that was the betterment thing. So that wouldn't have been covered. And so essentially it was pay the ransom or we're not going to cover anything. I mean, that's what it boiled down to. So we're like, fine, the breach coach handles all that. We don't get involved on the incident response side and handling any of that. And then it was either the next day or a couple days later, we got an email from the FBI field office that you can't pay the ransom because this ransomware group is on the OFAC list, meaning there's known sponsors of terrorism or something.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't pay the ransom anyway. It was such a cluster. But I mean, I think those are other things to consider. Hopefully you're doing as part of your incident response preparation. I mean, cyber insurance should be part of that. It should be integrated into your incident response process. So if you don't have, I mentioned before having a risk assessment so you know what it is you're actually going to be covering. Another thing is incident response, right? When the bad thing happens, Joe mentioned one of the ways you can lose your coverage is you didn't notify the insurance company quickly enough. In most insurance policies, it tells you some notification period that you have to meet. And so if you exceed that and they decline your coverage, there's really no recourse for that. It's in the contract. So understanding that, building that into your incident response process, but then also part of your incident response process is doing your tabletop exercises, talking through different types of scenarios and what you would do. What will you do if you're stuck in that situation where the insurance company isn't going to pay your claim? Does that mean you just shut the doors down to the business and just close up? Or what are you going to do about it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that OFAC list point is really good because if you pay a terrorist on the OFAC list, you can actually not only lose your business, but you could go to jail.
Yeah, it's illegal. Yeah, you're funding a terrorist state.
If you're trying to figure out a claim on your own, like I had a guy owned a trucking company, about 50 trucks. He got hacked by a Cure ransomware group, and he did all the negotiation himself. And he got him down from $250K to $115K, and then he had to pay him, right? So he had to put money in a Coinbase account because he didn't know anything about crypto. And then he tries to pay via Coinbase. All right, so his Coinbase account gets locked, right? Because now he's like trying to move money too fast. Can't get his money out of there. Has to like LinkedIn message everybody he knows that's related to somebody in Coinbase. Gets his money out, loses 10% in the instance, and then finally he's got to find like a company like Digital Mint or somebody that pays these people for you and that will check the OFAC list and everything, and then you can pay the hacker to get your system unlocked or make sure that they delete what they say they're deleting, even though they never delete it. So it's a big mess when you're just doing it yourself and you don't have, a breach coach and incident response people, digital forensics, all those people on your side. And even like the PR, right? Like insurance company is going to help you with your PR too. Like hire a PR firm in order to like make sure that your messaging is good so that you're not saying stupid stuff to your employees or to the public. And that should be part of your incident response team too. You should always have a go-to person that's going to be talking to the press and like a backup go-to person that's going to talk to the press. And you should have templates ready to go out to the press. Like, hey, you can even, report it anonymously to IC3 and then put out a press release saying that you're cooperating with law enforcement. It's like, it's kind of a gray area, but like, the PR companies and the breach counsel will help you with that stuff. So like, that's what the insurance company brings. It's like it brings the entire team. And if it happens right, it's a godsend. But, like I said, if you don't read your insurance policy or if you, say you have something that you don't have, then it's a different story. But I've never had a claim denied because of that. But, it definitely could happen.
That's awesome.
And everything you're describing kind of rolls into what is the total cost of ownership were something like this to happen. And I think, and many of vCISO clients or CISO clients don't know that, because one of the things we would emphatically be passionate about on the FR Secure side is if there was an incident, you got to go back through after it's been cleaned up and do some threat hunting. just to verify if your environment is clean. And from from what I'm hearing you share about like betterment and stuff, I don't know if that would be included.
Well, I think the first thing they do is if you don't have EDR, they're going to slap an EDR on to make sure that they can find any threat that's in there. But yeah, like you said, betterment's not covered. But in order to get insured again, or like say a lot of insurance companies are requiring a pen test after a major breach before you get your renewal. Or if you don't have insurance and then you get breached and you want to get insurance, they may require a pen test. So we're seeing insurance companies use pen testing as a way of vetting people more and more. And I think that's a good thing.
Are they paying for that, or they're just requiring the client pay for that?
They're requiring the client to pay for it. But I mean, if you have a breach, you're kind of going through that system already. But like, yeah, the client has to pay for the pen test in most cases.
That's cool, man.
Insurance. It's fun.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Joe, how passionate are you about cyber insurance?
I would say like 9.5. Yeah.
Woohoo!
You wake up just ready to go get
Well,
them.
I like cyber insurance, but I like how it fits into the whole ecosystem. I like this. I like the cybersecurity ecosystem. I think for all the crap that we take and the people saying that things are too expensive or like why do I need that? Like you guys are really providing an amazing service and it pays dividends. It's the money that pays that nobody knows because they didn't have the breach or they didn't have the hack. So it's so hard to quantify. There are some new products out there that are getting better at quantifying risk, but like, yeah, we are the unsung heroes of the business. And I think that we need to have a seat at the table. As CISOs need to get into the boardroom and be part of those decisions because cyber should be a part of every single decision that the boardroom makes.
Are you a certified vCISO?
Me? No, I'm not certified.
Would you like to be?
Sure.
We have a course.
Sure. Yeah.
We have a course that could get you certified.
Nice.
And we could probably use a little module about cyber insurance in the course.
Sure. I'd be happy to teach that.
Definitely
I'm a
true.
certified risk manager. Does that count? No.
Nice.
That's good. I mean, that's good. vCISO content is pretty stellar.
Yeah. I'd love to learn more about being a vCISO. Yeah. I mean, the more background I can get, the better I can work with you guys. So it's great.
Well, it'll really help you understand where each of us fits in the whole overall ecosystem of stuff.
For sure.
Yeah. What do you think, Andy?
Man, I think you'd make a great student.
Great student and a great teacher.
Yeah.
Amen. Both.
I really appreciate how you shared your perspective. I think this is a topic that I don't think gets discussed enough. It doesn't get challenged enough. I think people, especially in the small to mid-sized business space, you talk about imposter syndrome, prior to the podcast, sometimes it can get intimidating to talk about things like this when you don't know anything about this. It makes you almost feel like you're stupid. But the fact of the matter is, as a vCISO, as any leader in information security, I would rather not spend an information security dollar than misspend an information security dollar. And so for me to do the best service to my customers, sometimes I might need to look stupid to ask the right questions to get the right answers. My job at the end of the day as a vCISO is to consult the business to make good risk decisions and then implement those risk decisions. So if I don't know these things about information security, risk management, cyber insurance, I'm doing a disservice to my customer because it's part of the strategy. It fits, right? When I'm encountered with risk, it's accept, mitigate, transfer, avoid. Those are my 4 options. There are no other options. Risk ignorance is just default acceptance. So you're accepting risks you don't even know about. That's the worst place to be. So getting out there, do the work. You're talking about the survival of your business, not to mention, feeding this dark underworld criminal enterprise, with millions and millions, if not billions and trillions of dollars. Don't play the victim card, get your shit together, do your information security risk assessment, make those good risk recommendations. Those risks that are not acceptable, that you can't mitigate or don't make sense to mitigate, go talk to an insurance person like Joe to help you get the right policy that fits so that you've got those things covered. And then you're going into all these things with eyes wide open. There are no surprises. When you do have that breach, There's no like, shit, our insurance isn't going to cover this. Really, the only person you have to blame for that, unless you've been lied to yourself, the only person you have to blame for that is yourself because you suck at your job. I mean, that's what we do as vCISOs. We go into these things and we talk to people like Joe who give us like, oh, okay, that's a very interesting perspective that I didn't think about. That just makes me a better vCISO when I go talk to my client. So don't discount what Joe brings to the table. That transfer piece, that's where he fits. And he'll also fit, depending on the relationship you have with your insurance broker, they can also help you kind of navigate, well, what about this risk? You know what I mean? I was thinking about maybe putting some things in place, maybe to mitigate this risk, but how hard would that be to insure against that? How much would that cost? You know what I mean? These conversations, giving them a seat at the table builds your strategy. So I'm 100% game for this. And finding somebody like Joe, who's actually a person of integrity too, right? There's a lot of shitty players out in this game. Anyway, I could preach all day on that kind of stuff, but I'm really happy that Joe, that you came here and taught us these things a little bit. I feel like I know more about it. And I feel like now I have a resource that I can go to if I have questions on cyber insurance.
Absolutely. Thank you, Evan.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
We wrapping this thing up, Andy?
I think that's a wrap.
Can you insure against my tattoos? These are sweet tattoos.
You got any tats, Joe?
No, just MS-13 on my...
We need to get him a Harley Davidson motorcycle.
Yeah. You can find me on... do you guys do this at the end?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, where do we find you?
On LinkedIn, Joe Erle. Joe at c3insurance.com is my email. And then check out my podcast. It's a cybersecurity podcast for CISOs, vCISOs, people in tech, business owners. It's called Ransomware Rewind. It's fun. We riff on different subjects and current events and cybersecurity. It's very non-technical and it's fun. So,
all right,
I just tried to connect with you on LinkedIn and it said I got rejected. What's the deal?
You just got
declined.
Yeah. You want to share
for listeners too, Joe Erle is ERLE. So Joe ERLE. And his podcast is Ransomware Rewind Podcast. So if you want to Google that, I assume, Joe, we can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, your usual places.
Yep. And YouTube. Yep.
It's for IT professionals, cyber professionals, professionals, business owners, and Evan's mom.
And pesos.
Yeah. You want to share your OnlyFans tagline?
It's Cyber Joe. And that's my TikTok and Instagram.
It's Cyber Joe after hours.
Yeah.
All right. Andy, you got anything to say to wrap this thing up?
Yeah.
No. Thanks for joining us, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll have you back if we get more questions. And I think it's good to probably as a regular, every once in a while have you come back and just remind us new things. This industry is changing a lot. The cyber insurance industry is changing a lot and just keeping us abreast on, what things we should know as we're consulting our clients.
Absolutely. You guys are a lot of fun too. Anytime.
Heck yeah. All right.
Right on.